You know that wall of impending doom you face when you first check your phone in the morning?
Oh, yeah. The morning doom scroll.
Right, exactly. It's just this barrage of political threats, economic anxiety, and, public outrage over whatever happened just 5 minutes ago.
Hmm.
It honestly feels like stepping out of your front door and immediately standing in front of a fire hose of panic.
That is a very accurate description, honestly.
Yeah, so today's deep dive is really about surviving that exact fire hose, and we're pulling from kind of a surprising pair of sources to figure this out.
Yeah, it's an interesting combo,
Right. We've got an ancient text, which is chapter 8 of the biblical book of Isaiah, and we're looking at that alongside a modern analytical guide to human psychology.
which I love.
Yeah, our mission here is basically to extract timeless, no fluff strategies for staying grounded when everything around you just feels, well, totally uncertain.
And, the pairing of those two sources
Hmm.
is actually brilliant. Because, sure, the technology delivering all this panic to our brains, that's relatively new.
Oh, totally. Smartphones, the internet.
Right, but the human reaction, that is ancient. The psychological mechanisms that drive, the contagion of panic or the retreat into echo chambers and
Yeah.
that desperate search for quick answers, it's identical to what people were experiencing millennia ago.
Hmm.
I mean, the hardware of the human brain really hasn't changed.
It really hasn't. So let's ground this in the historical reality that Isaiah was actually facing because the stakes were incredibly high for him.
Yeah, very high.
Isaiah is a prophet living in a time of just extreme national threat. Like, this isn't some abstract, generalized anxiety about the economy.
I know, no, there are literal armies on the horizon here.
Exactly. The Assyrian Empire is expanding, and they were, frankly, notoriously brutal.
Yeah, they were the superpower of the ancient Near East.
Right. And known for psychological warfare, utterly leveling cities. So the panic the people are feeling, it's completely justified by the geopolitical landscape.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very real threat.
And in the middle of all this terror, God tells Isaiah to do something, well, highly visible.
Hmm.
He's instructed to take a massive scroll, like a great roll, and write on it concerning Maher-shalal-Hashbaz.
Quite the name.
Right. And he even brings in reliable witnesses to record it. Then he has a newborn son and gives him that exact same incredibly long name.
Which, you have to realize, carrying that name around was like a deliberate walking billboard.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The text actually signifies that before this child even learns how to speak basic words like, father or mother,
Yeah.
the riches of the surrounding powers, Damascus and Samaria, are going to be completely plundered by the king of Assyria.
So the kid is literally a timeline.
Exactly. He is a crying, breathing countdown clock to a geopolitical disaster.
Right.
The threat is moving fast, and, well, everyone in the nation knows it.
Okay, so the people are watching this countdown clock, and their reaction is really where the core conflict of this text emerges. God points out that the public is making a very specific and honestly disastrous choice. They're actively refusing the waters of Shiloah.
Mm-hmm.
And the text describes these waters as ones that, quote, go softly. It's a gentle, steady, unassuming resource.
But of course, when you're facing a massive, terrifying army, gentle and steady feels, hopelessly inadequate.
Exactly. You don't want a quiet stream, you want a roaring cannon.
Right.
So the people reject the soft waters, and instead they start rejoicing in these political alliances and loud, aggressive strongman solutions.
And the psychological drive there is just fascinating. When human beings feel fundamentally unsafe, nuance and quiet stability are usually the very first things we abandon.
We just throw them right out the window.
Completely. We equate loudness with strength. But the text reveals the devastating consequence of making that trade-off.
Because they reject the quiet waters.
Yes. The warning is that a different kind of water is coming.
Right.
The Lord says, He will bring upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, which specifically represents the king of Assyria.
Oh, man.
And the imagery is very deliberate. This violent river will overflow all its channels, breach its banks, and sweep through the land. But here's the crucial detail. It says the water will reach, quote, even to the neck.
Even to the neck.
Yeah.
I mean, that implies you are just entirely powerless at that point.
You're definitely not swimming.
No, you're just desperately tilting your chin up to grab a breath before the next wave hits. You are completely consumed by the current.
Yeah.
And honestly, we do the exact same thing today. I mean, We reject slow, foundational truths because the loud, rushing flood of the crowd or the news feed feels so much more urgent and powerful.
We do. We actively invite the floodwaters of public outrage and sensationalism right up to our necks.
Thinking it'll somehow protect us.
Right. We mistake the energy of the flood for safety, but the flood only destroys. I mean, when the water is at your neck, your brain's prefrontal cortex.
That's the logical part, right?
Yes, the logical decision-making center. It just shuts down. You enter pure survival mode.
Which makes the specific instruction God gives to Isaiah next so striking. Because the text notes that the Lord spoke to him with a strong hand.
Oh, I love that imagery.
Yeah, it paints a picture of physical intervention. It's almost as if God had to grab Isaiah by the shoulders and forcefully shake him to snap him out of the ambient panic of the culture. The instruction is explicit. Do not walk in the way of this people. Do not call everything a confederacy, which was like the political conspiracy of the day, just because the public is crying confederacy.
Right.
And the ultimate mandate, which really hits hard, do not fear their fear.
That's the core of it.
But I do want to push back on that mandate for a second, though.
Okay, sure.
Because the idea of not fearing what everyone else fears sounds noble, right? But isn't fear just a fundamental survival instinct?
Well,
Like, think about driving down a highway. If you spot a massive pothole, your fear of hitting it makes you hyperfixate on it. You stare at it so you can avoid it. It seems like fear is literally designed to dictate our behavior to keep us alive. How can you simply decide, not to fear a legitimate threat?
that driving analogy is actually the perfect way to dismantle the idea that fear is always a reliable guide.
Really? How so?
Well, consider what happens neurologically when you fixate on that pothole. Your target fixation often causes your hands to subtly turn the steering wheel toward the very thing you were staring at.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you steer right into the hazard.
Exactly. You steer right into it. And our analytical guide zeroes in on this phenomenon, expanding on the whole concept of group contagion.
Right.
When Isaiah is warned not to adopt the crowd's fear of a confederacy, it's because group anxiety fundamentally distorts risk assessment.
Because you essentially outsource your critical thinking to the mob.
Yes. One person starts running, and suddenly the whole crowd is in a full sprint.
And nobody in the back even knows what the threat is.
Exactly. They're just running because the adrenaline is contagious. The fear stops being an early warning system, and it basically becomes the steering wheel.
Which is exactly the point the analytical guide makes. Like, under extreme pressure, a crowd doesn't think, right? It merely reacts.
And if you adopt the collective fear, you are no longer actually protecting yourself.
You're just allowing the most panicked, least rational voices in the room to make your decisions for you.
Yes. Adopting the crowd's fear inevitably leads to overreaction, avoidance, and just terrible long-term choices. You end up crashing into the pothole simply because everyone else was screaming about it.
Okay, so realizing that the crowd's fear is a dangerous steering wheel, that kind of leaves us in a precarious vacuum. You can't just tell human beings to turn off their survival instincts and feel nothing, right? Nature abhors a vacuum.
Right. You need something to fill it.
Exactly. If we are supposed to reject the ambient panic, we need a substitute. We need something heavier to ground us.
And the text actually anticipates that exact need. It systematically strips away the false solutions first.
Like what?
Well, it dismisses the frantic political plotting of the crowd, noting that they can, take counsel together. But it will come to nothing. They can speak the word, but it will not stand.
So the plans born out of communal panic are just structurally unsound.
Exactly. They lack a foundation.
Which sets up the most critical pivot in the entire narrative. Because the alternative to the crowd's panic is finally presented. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. Now, to modern ears, I'll admit, commanding someone to make God their dread sounds incredibly harsh.
It does sound intense.
It almost sounds like psychological abuse, right? Like we're trading a geopolitical terror for a cosmic terror. But digging into the mechanics of this, it's not about cowering in a corner waiting to be struck by lightning.
Far from it, actually. The concept of dread here is really about recognizing ultimate immovable authority. It's about proportion. When you encounter something of infinite weight and permanence, those temporary, shifting threats, they just lose their power over you.
It's kind of like choosing an anchor in a hurricane.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, imagine you're on a boat taking on water. If you tie yourself to a piece of driftwood, you will spend the entire storm terrified of every single wave.
Because the driftwood is totally at the mercy of the water.
Exactly. But if you chain yourself to a massive million-pound anchor, like something so incredibly dense that the storm cannot possibly move it, you choose to respect the anchor's weight more than the waves.
Yeah.
You make the anchor your dread, so to speak. You revere its immovability. Because you're tethered to something unbreakable, the surface chaos can't dictate your fate anymore.
That anchor metaphor captures the dynamic perfectly. Though, the text actually grounds the imagery even further by using a foundation stone.
Huh?
And this introduces one of the most fascinating paradoxes in the text. It states that the Lord will be a sanctuary, so a safe, impenetrable place of refuge. But simultaneously, he will be a stone of stumbling, a rock of offense, and a trap to the inhabitants of Jerusalem.
Which is such a wild concept. The identical object acts as a safe house for one person and a literal booby trap for someone else.
Right.
How does a foundation stone actively harm someone?
Well, the analytical guide unpacks this paradox brilliantly. The truth, the foundation stone is entirely neutral and completely unyielding.
Okay.
The variable isn't the stone, the variable is how human beings approach it. If your internal trajectory is aligned with that unyielding truth, it stabilizes you. It becomes your sanctuary.
Because external chaos cannot shake a life built on a solid foundation.
Exactly. However, if you resist that truth, if your response to a crisis is to run around in a blind, self-directed panic looking for your own shortcuts, you're going to collide with that immovable stone.
I see. It operates exactly like gravity then.
Yes, perfect example.
Right. If you respect the laws of gravity and build a house according to those principles, keeping everything plumb and level your house withstands the storm. Gravity is the very force keeping your roof over your head. But if you decide the rules don't apply to you, and you just sprint off the edge of a cliff in a panic, gravity is the force that shatters your bones.
Right.
It is the exact same fundamental law of the universe. The outcome depends entirely on your alignment with it.
Alignment creates clarity, while resistance creates devastation. I mean, the crowd, caught up in the contagion of fear, is not looking at the ground.
No, they're looking at the floodwaters.
Exactly. And the text explicitly warns that many among them shall stumble, fall, be broken, and be taken. They are destroyed by the very foundation that was designed to be their sanctuary.
And when people refuse to align with that heavy anchor, they don't just stand still, right? The panic forces them into this frantic, useless movement. The text actually describes the fallout of this stumbling in vivid, almost eerie detail. It says that instead of seeking their God or looking to the law and the testimony, the panicked crowd seeks out familiar spirits and wizards that peep and that mutter.
Oh man, wizards that peep and mutter is such a brilliantly specific phrase.
It really is.
It evokes this low-level, continuous, frantic noise. It is the sound of people desperately trying to divine the future from dark, unreliable sources.
And the modern parallel is almost entirely literal.
Oh, for sure.
Think about what we do when we are overwhelmed by global threats at 2 a.m.
We doom scroll.
Right. We lie in the dark, staring at a glowing screen, scrolling through algorithmic echo chambers. We listen to sensationalist pundits and anonymous internet personalities who basically just constantly stir up outrage. It is a never-ending stream of digital peeping and muttering.
And we consume this noise because it masquerades as insight.
Right.
We consume it because frantic activity mimics the feeling of control. Our analytical guide focuses heavily on this illusion of progress.
Because it feels like you're doing something.
Exactly. When people bypass the quiet, steady truths, those gentle waters of Sheloah, and frantically search for shortcuts, they experience a severe cognitive and spiritual toll.
Yeah.
The text outlines the consequence starkly. They pass through the land, quote, hardly bestead and hungry. They fret themselves, curse their leaders, curse their God, and look upward only to find nothing.
So they basically end up utterly exhausted, furious, and starving for actual truth.
Yes.
They're angry at their politicians, resentful of their faith, and just completely miserable. It is a literal perfect description of modern burnout.
It really is.
We feel highly productive because we are consuming vast amounts of terrifying information. Like, we pride ourselves on being hyper-informed about every catastrophe on the globe.
Right, but we are just spinning our tires in the mud.
Sinking deeper and getting angrier.
Because movement does not equal progress. You can be incredibly active, refreshing feeds, engaging in furious debates, cataloging every piece of bad news, and still be completely lost. The text warns that if they do not speak according to the law and the testimony, it is because there is no light in them. Seeking answers in the dark only produces more darkness.
And the narrative confirms that tragic trajectory. It says they look to the earth and behold trouble, darkness, and the dimness of anguish.
The dimness of anguish.
Yeah, they're driven entirely into the dark. It proves that when you reject the immovable foundation, you basically engineer your own instability. The confusion isn't happening to them. It is the direct result of their own misalignment.
Exactly. And if frantic flailing only leads to darkness and exhaustion, the only viable alternative is stillness.
Which brings us to the pause.
Right. Isaiah offers his personal strategy in stark contrast to the crowd. He says, I will wait upon the Lord that hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him.
Wow.
And he follows this by declaring he will bind up the testimony and seal the law among his disciples. He is actively locking down the truth.
I will wait. That is such a disruptive concept.
It is.
Because when the floodwaters are at your neck, waiting feels like surrender.
Oh, completely.
But in this context, waiting is an intensely active, strategic choice. It's really about applying these insights to intentionally strengthen your trust and your relationship with God.
Yes.
Trusting God when the culture is screaming at you requires immense discipline. It means choosing alignment over convenience.
Right.
It means relying on the slow, gentle waters, even when everyone around you is building chaotic lifeboats.
And developing that relationship with God requires the discipline of the pause. I mean, Isaiah acknowledges that God is hiding his face, which implies there are prolonged periods where the current reality does not make sense.
Where it just feels awful.
Yeah. The panic around you will seem incredibly justified. The economic or political threats will look devastatingly real.
Right.
But waiting on the Lord requires tuning out the incessant peeping and muttering of the culture. It is the active belief that his stable foundation provides long-term clarity, even when the short-term floodwaters are rising.
Which completely reframes our definition of strength, doesn't it?
How you mean?
Well, we're conditioned to view strength as aggressive action, fighting back, shouting louder, dominating the conversation.
Sure.
But true strength, as demonstrated here, is the capacity to remain perfectly still and anchored while the rest of the world loses its mind.
Oh, that's good.
You feel the spike in cortisol, you see the terrifying headlines, but instead of flailing around for a quick fix, you brace yourself against the stone. You let the ultimate authority be your dread, making the conscious decision that the anchor is heavier than the storm.
And the outcomes there could not be more divergent. I mean, following the contagion of the crowd ends in the dimness of anguish.
Right.
But waiting on the Lord, anchoring to the testimony, that results in profound stability. But that stability is reserved for those who possess the discipline to withstand the urge to react.
So we've covered ancient military threats, the neurological impact of group panic, and the slow decay of the echo chamber.
We have covered a lot.
We really have. But as we pull all of these threads together, there is a deeper layer to consider about the tools we use to navigate our own crises.
Yeah, consider this angle for a second. The people of Isaiah's time were seeking out literal necromancers and wizards, thinking they were accessing hidden wisdom.
Right.
From our modern vantage point, their desperate rituals look entirely foolish. But it raises a fascinating question about our current era.
Okay, I'm listening.
Hundreds of years from now, when historians look back at our time, what will they call our glowing screens, our algorithms, and our 24-hour outrage cycles?
Oh, wow.
They will likely view our endless doom scrolling the exact same way we view those ancient wizards.
That is, yeah.
They will see a society desperately peeping and muttering into the void, mistaking digital noise for wisdom, and wondering why we were also consumed by the dimness of anguish.
That is a chilling perspective. The technology evolves, but the desperate human attempt to bypass the quiet truth remains exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
So tomorrow morning, when that familiar wall of impending doom hits your phone screen, you face a distinct choice. You can let the contagion of fear sweep you into the floodwaters, or you can choose the discipline of the pause and plant your feet on the anchor. How will you apply this information in your life?